Dating and relationships. Could be a bit of a minefield, couldn't it? Yes. I'm not exactly the world's expert on it, but anyway, here we go. We'll have a go. So I'm going to split into two videos. No, two sections in one video. So let's deal with the relationships. Now, I'm making the assumption that you're here because you've had a life-changing moment. That's the best way to describe it. So, not necessarily talking about brachial plexus, but more you've had a life-changing moment because you could have ended up in a wheelchair, ended up with other physical injuries. But what happens is you change. That's why it's called a life-changing moment. And it happened to me after my accident. You don't realise at the time, but you change. How can you be otherwise? Back then, it wasn't really talked about at all. You just kind of got on with it. But, you know, in the last 20 or so years, it's talked about a lot more. The one I can think of springs to mind is Richard Hammond. He was on Top Gear, was in that dragster, big accident, and as he said, he was never the same person afterwards. And that's what's going to happen to you. Whether you're, a couple of weeks after your life-changing moment or 3 years down the line. So how does that impact relationships? Well, in my particular case, I wasn't in a relationship, and the first 9 months after my accident, I had 3 short relationships that all went horribly, well, it didn't go horribly wrong, but I just wasn't in the right place. And really, nothing worked until I could look in the mirror and go, well, not particularly happy, but, it's okay. And once you start to accept things and start to learn to live with it and happy, kind of, happier, shall we say, then you can kind of start having a relationship that might actually work, because that person you were before has gone. There's still parts of it there, but this new person's forming. Your personality's going to change. Mine certainly did. Before the accident, I was kind of drifting a bit. That's probably the best way to describe it. And afterwards, went through sort of, if you've watched the other videos, you know what I've been through. And it wasn't really until sort of a year and a half later I became quite focused about what I was aiming for. And that's carried on through the rest of life. If you've had a particularly nasty injury, so or in a wheelchair or constant pain all the time, that also affects you. You have to deal with that all the time. Constant pain is the worst because it's draining all the time on your emotional and mental side. So you have to learn to deal with that. And also you become more tolerant in some things and less tolerant with others. You learn a great deal of patience for some things. So something that used to take you 10 seconds with 2 hands and takes you 5 minutes with 1 hand. Yeah, you're going to have to learn patience for that sort of stuff. But at the same time, you learn to appreciate that you're alive. You realise how precious life is, and it could end at any minute. So you tend to, well, I do. I must admit, I have very little patience for people that say, oh, I'm bored. How can you be bored if you're alive? Now, of course, this also impacts your relationships with family and friends. Now, this is kind of my point. Let's say you've had an accident and you're married, or you're living with family. So, a range of people. What they need to be aware of is the fact that you will change over the next few years. You won't be the same person that you were. Now, in family, that's kind of okay because your family love you for who you are. But if you got married and that person you got married to expects you to be a certain type of person, and all of a sudden 6 months, 9 months, a year later, you're not that person anymore, I think that's something that any partner should be made aware of. Okay, let's try talking about dating, shall we? And meeting someone. Not that easy, is it, anymore? Online dating and all that. But anyway, so when I had my accident, no online dating. One of the main ways was pen pals and writing, stuff like that. So that's how the first sort of 3 people I met. No, the first 2 I met like that. And then the third one was my disability officer, and I just asked her out. That didn't work out either. So nothing really worked until I was happy with myself. In fact, the gap of 9 months between when I was happy and started seeing someone and the before period was very good for me. Gives you time to focus on yourself and to work out what you're going to do and where you're going in life, because obviously it's all topsy-turvy beforehand. So I met this lady, and it lasted, year and a half, something like that, nearly. And it didn't work out in the end, unfortunately, due to circumstances which I won't go into. But, it was a very positive relationship for me. It was, the way I describe it was, it's like your first love. So can you remember that far back? Yes. When you were 16, 17, and it was like, oh my Lord. But imagine that when you're 28. So to me, it was a very important relationship and kind of sorted my head out a lot. After that, you think, well, what could possibly go wrong? Well, you could still pick the bad ones as well. And I went straight into a bad one after that, and I'm not even going to talk about it, but that was a year of my life wasted. After that, again, had a gap, and then I met a girl I ended up marrying, and that sort of worked out for about 10 years, and unfortunately didn't work out fully in the end. But after that, so we're talking sort of 2007, 8, something like that. Oh dear. The world had moved on into online dating. So this is a bit of a minefield for those of us with a disability, shall we say. Having said that, back then, there were people that were serious about meeting other people to try and have a relationship. Unlike now, when it's 95% scammers, and it's just like, why am I even here? I'm just getting messages from Brazil and Nigeria and all around the world, and nobody 10 miles down the road. Now, one of the very first things you have to think about when you're putting your profile up online is, do you mention your disability? Now, if you do, it kind of defines who you are online, because that's the thing that gets zeroed in on, and not your sparkling personality and wit, which is what you want to be. So I did try both. I tried not mentioning it at all, and then being very open about it in the profile, and boy, does it make a difference. Wow. Let's see. I would say you get 75% reduction in people being interested, shall we say. So after a while, I stopped mentioning it. And you can see it in the photos, there's something not quite right. But I thought, no, because all that happens then is the opening line is usually something, oh, tell me more. And it's like, oh, God, I don't want to tell my life story again. Now, some of you out there may be thinking, bit of a disability. Go for the sympathy. And yes, you can give it a go. I can't say I've ever really done it. No, I'm trying to think. Not really, no. Not like, oh, please help me, I'm a useless old cripple. But I do know you can exploit it. For example, let's say you're at a drinks reception. You can go say to somebody, oh, would you please hold my drink for me? I've only got the one hand up. And it's like, oh. No, I've never done it. But I have read a few stories. So, yes, people do exploit it. Now, back to the serious stuff. So, yeah, I mean, so when you go out on a date, should you be lucky enough to go out on a date, personally, I don't wear a sling. So, to me, I just rock up as I am and, sit down, plonk my arm down. Sometimes they notice, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they'll talk about it, and other times they won't. Because really what you're trying to do is get you across who you are, what makes you tick and all that sort of stuff. Because really, your disability, although it's part of you, doesn't define who you are, does it? I mean, although you have to deal with it in everyday life, that doesn't mean that's all you are. It's a bit like, if I've turned up on a date and it's a bit of a hot sunny day and I'm wearing, I don't know, a pair of shorts and a t-shirt, and the person goes, oh, you're the tattooed type, are you? And it's like, oh dear, we're at this point already and we haven't even got the drinks yet. Now, something you should definitely not do. Go speed dating. Just don't do it. I've done it twice. I said I'd never go again after the first time. They literally had to almost pay me to go the second time. And at the end of it all, it was like, it's a summer's evening, 10 o'clock in the evening. I'm on the Harley. What a lovely ride back. And that was the best bit of the evening. Why is it so bad, you're saying? Well, we all know how it works. Let's say there's a dozen tables and a dozen ladies and there's a dozen blokes and everyone's all jaded and you've got your 3 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever it is and then the bell goes. So let's say plonk yourself down at the table and you've got a sling on. What's the first thing the person sees? Your sling. They don't care about you. It's like, oh, something interesting to talk about instead of the usual. So the first question you're going to get is, oh, what's that? Or, is you injured? La, 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 la. They're going to ask you lots of questions about your sling. So you're going to have to tell your life story about your incident or whatever it is. And by the time the 3 or 5 minutes is up, you've just about finished talking about it, and then, oh, you've got to move on. 12 conversations like that is enough to make you, I was going to say, top yourself, because it's like the worst thing in the world. You have to talk about your accident 12 times in an evening. I don't even want to talk about it 12 times in a year, let alone in an evening. So don't do it. Now, here we are, about to head into 2024. And you would think we lived in an enlightened and liberated world. No, not really. Even as recently as 2 years ago, I kind of started seeing someone a little tiny bit, and very nice looking, but a bit bonkers. And I can't remember what it was on, second or third date or something like that. She said, "Oh, I don't know how to treat you." Treat me? What do you mean treat me? She said, "Well, you've only got one arm. I don't know what to do. Do I need to cut your food up?" What? No, you're all right. And that has been consistent, certainly in the first sort of up to about 10 years ago. You would go out on a date and they would say, "Well, how do you manage?" I said, "Well, what do you mean?" "Well, I only have in one hand. How do you do anything?" So, yes, you get asked a lot of, I was going to say dumb questions, but I suppose if you think about it, why would anyone normal know any better? But, there are some out there. It's like, no, within a minute, like, quick, drink up, go. So the type of person you want to meet, obviously, is the type that says, "Oh, what happened?" You explain it, and they say, "Well, do you need any help?" You go, "No, I'll ask for help if I need any." And they go, "Oh, fair enough," and carry on with the conversation. And that's, type of person that you want to meet, because then, your charming wit and personality can come through and you can wow them. Or not. So you may be thinking, "Okay, Mr. Expert, how do you meet someone?" And my advice is, don't bother online. Lots of websites out there, all the same people on all the websites. So, I shouldn't even bother. Speed dating, don't bother. I would do something like, let's say you like walking, join a walking club. Or you like wine tasting, join a wine tasting club. Meet real humans who can see straight past you, whatever's wrong with you, and see who you are for who you are. And that's my advice. As to me, well, after getting divorced, I had a kind of a decision to make, and I decided to be a dad. Best decision I made. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. But it meant not really having any relationships at all. Tried for a while, but no, I'd put all my emotional side into being a dad. And then after that, I grew up. Few family issues, then COVID, and then carrying on with the family issues. And it's like, you've been single a very long time. But I do try. It also kind of makes you realise that the special ones, you don't meet that often in life. So, make the most of them. Yes, be nice to be with somebody again. And yes, I know life's better with somebody special in your life. But it's also pretty horrible with the wrong person, as we all know as well. But, that's life. No. Well, I'll have to go out there and try and find someone. Or, hey, I'm online. Hello, ladies.